You know, if there's one question I get asked more than any other, more even than have you ever just gone up to some random kid, told them that you're them from the future come to warn them about the impending AI apocalypse, that question would have to be, Mark, is the unique look of expired film able to capture something magical beyond the capability of digital cameras? Well, today we're going to try and answer that question. So to really understand the distinctiveness of expired film, I thought the smart thing to do would be to start the roll with a direct comparison. Same lens, different cameras. Firstly, my modern Nikon Z6 and then my Nikon F100. The F100 is a classic from the end of the film era with all the modern features expected of contemporary cameras in a rugged, well-built body. I loaded it with a roll of Konica VX200 Super with an expiration date of 2007 and headed out of Perth with the naive hope that I would produce something magical beyond what could be captured on the objectively good but potentially boring 24 megapixel Z6 sensor. I made sure to do everything right. The F100 is a beast. The VX200 film was branded as a cheap consumer film, but it says Super on the label, so surely I could expect something a little bit special. It did promise vivid colours. And I was careful to follow the overexposure rules for expired film. They say one stop per decade, and we're 16 years since this 200 speed film was in its prime. So ISO 80 seemed like the sweet spot. Before we see the results, let's build some tension, capturing the desolate beauty of the landscape north of Perth as I trained my creativity on sand dunes and grass trees. The plan was simple, one or two photographs from the same location swapping out the cameras. I had my Nikon 70 to 200mm f2.8 zoom, which is widely acclaimed for its quality, despite being the size and weight of an aircraft carrier. Big and ugly, like granny panties, not something you feel comfortable pulling out in public, but giving you a reassuring sense of safety and security when used discreetly for the purposes for which it was intended. In this case, telephoto photography rather than trapping incontinence while holding your gut in. I even had my tripod for that extra bit of assurance. But the question is, should I have bothered? Well, let's have a look at the results. Firstly, the digital. And yes, that's a perfectly fine but slightly dull photo of some sand dunes. I would have loved to have created a greater sense of separation between the horizontal layers, but that would have required either an even longer lens and coming further backwards, or trying to strap on kilos of camera to my puny drone, which obviously wasn't going to be an option. Now for the film photo, and yeah. The plan was that I would now try to recreate the magic of film through expert post-processing of the digital photo, but really, if you want to see raw ingredients assaulted with a series of arcane and complex processes just to push out a sloppy turd at the end, you're better off visiting the Cloaca exhibition at Mona, Tasmania's Museum of Old and New Art. Surely, I hear you say, or at least I might if you subscribe and comment on the video. Yes, that's a hint. Surely, Mark, this is the first on the roll and the others can't be as bad. Well, digital and film. You get the idea. Of course, I didn't. I was completely clueless at this point and really quite excited at the prospect of taking the camera out the next day and using up the rest of this roll. So, shall I show you the results? I mean, really? Do you want to see them? Well, it's too late now, you're subscribed. Well, you can always unsubscribe, but I do know where you live and can easily come round to your house and set up a projector and treat you and your family to a 2-hour slideshow of my worst photos and accompany it with a turgid oral exegesis about the camera settings, my artistic intent as I cut the heads of seagulls out of the frame. I promise you the next few minutes is a merciful alternative, and who knows, maybe there are a couple of salvageable ones in there. So firstly, thank you for your patience as I ignorantly and enthusiastically shot frame after frame during my morning dog walk in Scarborough. In the end though, I think there wasn't much to be done. If you look at the negatives, the film base is a sickly green fog like something out of the trenches of World War I, and the photos themselves are just pallid, ghostly impressions. To be honest, I'm pleased I got anything out of them at all. Let me know what you think in the comments, particularly if you have any suggestions for how I could have done things better. I do have a few more expired rolls of various brands, and maybe next time I'll try giving it a bit more light. Are these ones salvageable? Well, I did my best, but none of these are going to make the cover of Life magazine. If you do want to see a slightly more successful example of my experience with expired film, click in the link above. For this particular experiment, it's fair to say the subject was already dying on the table. I think I'll just stuff the remains into the negative folder, chalk it up to experience, and hide it in the basement with the other desiccated corpses of my less successful creative endeavors. Later.